Hi, I'm Borkon. Glad to have you here. Welcome back. And yeah, it's episode 65. We definitely need to do a map. Well, I already did one. And it should be no secret to anyone that it is done. Completely done. I'm still seeing bits that I have missed to spam a little bone meal on, but I think I'm actually... Well, when looking at it directly, that maybe doesn't look good, but on the map, this actually... It makes it more interesting, rather than everything being, well, spammed with bone meal and tall grass and stuff like that. We're not gonna go through the map too much, other than noticing that the roof on this thing, yeah, it looks as terrible as I was suspecting it would, but nothing we can do about it, and nothing we need to do about it. There's not much to add to the map, so we're not gonna dwell on it. We're doing other things today. Today, we're jumping into a technical project immediately, because there are certain things that need to be done, and we're going back to this place. I want to build an overworld mob switch. Let's talk first about what problem we're trying to solve, because every time you build something functional, start always with asking the question, what problem am I trying to solve? So my problem is, I want to be able to do certain things like building a perimeter without it being disturbed by mobs all the time. And especially slimes in my case. I don't really care about the other mobs too much. When I was using the floor placer, for example, it would have been useful to have a mob switch as well to prevent hostile mobs from spawning, even though that problem could have been solved differently, like by placing the wall first. So in general, I just want to solve the problem of slimes when building a perimeter. Now, how can we prevent the slimes from spawning? Well, I could change game rules, but that wouldn't make this particularly vanilla. I could change to peaceful as well, but that would have two disadvantages. One, it would just basically ruin this world. This world has always been hard, except after one server restart when it turned into easy. I have no idea why. But other than that, it has been always on hard. I don't want to change that. And there's also a game rule I could change, do mob spawning. I don't want to change that either, because that will also ruin the world. So we want to keep the world at hard with normal rules, but still have the option of disabling mob spawning sometimes. So the easiest solution is a mob switch. Now, what does a mob switch do? If we look at the tab menu here, we see that the number 89/89, that's the number of hostile mobs currently loaded is the first number, and the second number is the limit of how many hostile mobs are allowed to spawn right now. And you can see the limit is quite high right now, because it's both me and my second account online at the same time, because the second account is loading the villager breeder. As you can see, there's lots of villagers there. I'm trying to fill it up so we can have villagers to work with later. And also he is very near the ocean, so there are caves that are not lit up there, and yeah, mobs are spawning. But we want to fill up the mob cap with mobs that we control. And the best way to do this right now are zombified villagers that you have been trading with. Those count towards mob cap, they will not despawn, and you have good control over them. So this is the same method we used in the Nether, but we're gonna use it in the overworld. Now, there are two ways to do a mob switch, and I think the easier would be to just do the exact same thing I did in the Nether. It is to just make a huge hole, put a lot of zombified villagers in there, and then have a chunk loader that sometimes is loading the area and sometimes isn't. That would be easy, that would be not particularly interesting though, because, well, some things we do in this world are not about just efficiency. Sometimes we just want to do something interesting or something fun. And I wanted to build a different kind of mob switch, and a mob switch that uses the spawn chunks. So if we enabled mini HUD, I have now enabled also the bit that shows me where the spawn chunks are. All the mobs, so in this case the zombified villagers, that are within this red border would be counting towards mob cap no matter where I am in the overworld. And if they're just outside here, well, they will not count towards mob cap. If we just find a way of moving a large amount of villagers from basically this block to this block, or anywhere along this line, we can choose whether they count towards mob cap when I'm working somewhere else or not. And I think the best place to place this, and I've been doing some measurements. This is not particularly optimal, but I think the best place to put them will be more or less in this corner, a little bit in that direction, but not much. I still load this area when I'm in my base, so it's not perfect. I would prefer to never load the villagers by accident, but there isn't really a good area anywhere around my base or at the edge of the spawn chunks where I'm far enough away to not load them. So unfortunately we will have to live with that. A better spot would be actually here, because if you see the distance measurement thing I have in my upper corner, this corner here is out of range of my base. This would be a better spot for the mob switch, but unfortunately it's way too close to the Guardian farm, and yeah, it would be loaded by the Guardian farm, and that would be worse. And I do believe... oh, I haven't done the measurement here. Let's see if I set my distance reference point to the AFK spot here. I hope I'm over 300 blocks away in that corner. Because if I'm not 300 blocks away, then we cannot have the mob switch here. We can have the mob switch here, we're over 300 blocks away. I might actually even put it... yeah, I will put it on this edge here. Now that I've thought about the Guardian farm. So yeah, we're gonna put it at this edge here. It should be close enough so we can easily send the villagers from the breeder to there and have them pre-zombified and everything else. So let's go to creative, and I'll show you the design process of how the machine is supposed to work. So we're here in creative, and I'm showing the spawn chunks with mini-HUD again. And we want to have the villager basically on this block. Pod for the villager, or the zombie villager. Put the villager in there. Oh, he's gonna burn, so they need a roof, of course. Let's add a few more blocks of the roof. And now the villager is outside of the spawn chunks, and it should be as simple as just taking this whole contraption and moving it back and forth. Now the zombie villager is in the spawn chunks, and now it is outside. Now the problem with this is that this zombie villager will despawn when I move away. So even in creative we need to convert this zombie villager from an actual villager first to have this whole contraption working. So let's get that done. So I added the drowned here with a trident, of course, because that's how you should zombify your villagers. We now have a librarian. Let's see if he is selling us anything. Well, he doesn't sell us anything useful. I need to just get one with a trade I can use. Yeah, this is a good trade that works. And now we can zombify him. 1, and a 2, and a 3. So now we have this zombified villager here. And he does count towards mob cap because, well, I am standing next to him. If we enable the mob caps log, this guy is not counting towards mob cap because he's holding a trident. And this guy does count towards mob cap because he actually spawned with the sword. So if I teleport out, he should not count towards mob cap because he is now outside of the spawn chunks. So let's teleport out and see what happens. And we're just gonna teleport 10,000 blocks out and look at mobcap. And the villager does not count towards mobcap. So let's teleport back. The villager didn't despawn because we have traded with him. And now if I move him into the spawn chunks, so as you can see, he is now inside the spawn chunks. We can do the same teleport. And you can see the 1 up there in the mobcap counter, which means that he does count towards mobcap. And that's the idea we're going to use for the mob switch here. We're going to put 24 villagers per pod because that is the cramming limit. I don't want to do any anti-cramming devices because that will not kind of work because we are moving the villagers around and vines would break and other things would break too. Something that my stream suggested when I was playing around with this is why don't we make this tileable? Why don't we have pods next to each other? So the first obvious idea is to just use slime like this. And then have another piston here. And we could have the villagers in there as well. Well, we need to have a way to contain them. But there is a problem with this. And you might already spot what the problem is. They can move between the honey and the slime. There's nothing preventing them. And when we would end up cramming with a lot of zombified villagers, that would definitely cause issues. So we need to separate the villagers from each other. And the simplest way to do that should be just using a trapdoor. Maybe like this, if I can place it correctly, which is actually a little bit of a pain. Right? And this should definitely work. Now the villagers are contained, and yeah, this should work. We can just repeat the honey on the next layer here, then repeat some slime, add some pistons, and just keep repeating this. So now we have a basic setup, and I'm going for 7 pods because that makes most sense for 2 players. And then if you want a mob switch for more players on a server, you would just build more of these contraptions. But this is just the beginning. Now the next problem is, how do we get the zombie villagers into the pods? Let's get rid of them so that we can experiment with that. And well, after a lot of experimentation that we did on stream, we came up with a system like this. Okay, we have a zombie villager that we put in a minecart, and this is an activator rail. It ejects the zombie villager to the right. It lands on this string, which this observer detects. The observer powers this block, which powers this redstone, and that gets redirected through the target block into the trapdoor, which opens and closes because, well, that doesn't work for items. It always works for zombie villagers, I hope. There is a good reason for why this is a trapdoor and not a retracting block, because the problem we're dealing with here is that we have already trapdoors going down here. So there is a risk that if this was a full block that we retracted, that the zombie villager would fall down and land on the edge of the trapdoor. If we open up a trapdoor instead of retracting a full block, the zombie villager will fall down and will never get stuck on top of the trapdoors below. So that's the idea. So now we just need to add trapdoors all the way here, over every single pod, add the strings, and it doesn't matter that all the trapdoors are opening every time a zombie villager gets ejected, because this activator rail will be controlling where they get ejected. And basically, this whole system is now already done, except, well, let's go a little bit over the top, shall we? Because if I was lazy, I would just fill 24 zombie villagers into the first pod, then come here, destroy this activator rail, place it here, and place a powered rail here, and we'd be done. And this is why, by the way, we need all the blocks of redstone, because this block of redstone is just powering here. It's not powering the activator rail, and we need power to these powered rails as well. We cannot have multiple activator rails next to each other, by the way, because if you power one activator rail, you power all of them. And I have not been able to find a solution to this, and I was about to give up on the live stream and said, oh well, I will just place the rails manually. It shouldn't matter that much, because to be honest, it doesn't really matter. But then Salandora came up with this with a fantastic idea that solves this problem. And I'm not going to build it here because we already have it built over here. Same idea with the trapdoors, same kinds of pods, same kind of mechanism for moving the zombie villagers. Nothing has changed except this. What's going on here? Of course it's a piston feed tape. What else would it be? We click this and we move the activator rail to the next pod. Of course we have to have a solution with a piston feed tape when it's possible. So now everything works. And these blocks are necessary because sometimes the zombified villagers are not ejecting to the right on the trapdoor. Sometimes they eject on the rail or even up on this block. I haven't really figured out why, but apparently putting a block into their heads when they're on the rail seems to solve the issue. Now, the only thing that remains is to add some kind of counter that will automatically trigger the piston feed tape once we have fed 24 villagers into a pod. Let's try to design that. And just because I am silly, instead of looking up a pulse divider, I decided to design my own. So every time a trapdoor opens, these rails get powered. So we can simulate that by pushing this note block. We'll do this in a second. This observer observes the rails powering, and it sends a pulse into this thing here, which through the target block powers one of the droppers, and the droppers contain, well, they contain 2 items now, which means that every 4th pulse we should be getting an output from this piston. Yeah, because that ended up more complicated than it should, but it basically should work like this. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the piston feed they moved. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and piston feed tape moved. So in the real machine I will just have 12 items in here, and that should power the whole machine. And this should be it. This is now completely fully automatic. Of course I will have to extend this line probably from the chunk loader all the way back to my base or somewhere like that, and maybe we add a beacon with the usual, like a signal that says that something is enabled or not. And yeah, that's how this machine should work. So let's demonstrate how this whole machine should work. It will be connected, the rail here will actually extend a lot and connect to a villager breeder like that, villager breeder and zombificator. And this is the one I used for my never mob switch. It's actually, this is where I did the design. The only thing I'm gonna change here is just to redirect this rail so it bypasses this and goes all the way to the mob switch here, and then somehow comes back here and goes back to this dispenser of minecarts. So let's demonstrate how this is supposed to work. We get a zombie villager here from the breeder, of course. He gets thrown into the pod, and now, well, I have already tested this 4 times, so the activator rail moved to the second pod, and now the zombie villager should be ending up in the second pod. Oh, did he? I didn't actually see, so let's verify that this is happening. He should end up in the second pod. And one more. Ah, okay. It's a good thing that I'm testing this, because it looks like every other one is going, and I think it's because, yeah, we're getting 2 pulses from that thing. So I need 24 items in the droppers, not just... Well, I have 2 now, and let's add 4 so that we get 4 villagers per pod. I don't know exactly which pod they should be in now, but let's try this. He will probably end up... Okay, he ended up in pod number 4, and now the rail should shift. Alright, and the last thing that someone showed me, it was also actually Salandora on the stream, is a trick to retrieve the minecarts when they end up on the rail here. The minecart will actually float through the soul sand and onto the rail here, which can be now powered and sent back to the breeder. This is all we need for now. We're gonna just build this up in survival now and see if it works. Because this is pretty much all the testing I've done, and something that I mentioned in the world tour that people reacted to is that I demonstrate my machines and contraptions first in the Let's Play series. And it's not just a strategy for marketing for the Let's Play series, it's also because that's how I test them. I do some testing in creative, I sometimes do quite a lot of testing in creative, but there is nothing like a real application of a contraption in real Minecraft to test it properly. So now we're gonna build it in survival. I'm gonna fill it with as many villagers as I can. And this might be an issue because, yeah, it takes quite a while to breed all the villagers. And we're gonna test it and see if it works. And in 2 weeks from now, after I've seen that it has worked, I'll try to make a guide for this because I actually like the system. It's very neat. And, well, if it works. If it doesn't work, there might be reasons why it doesn't work. Like, for example, that villager jumping up. I don't know if I like it. Are they trying to pathfind up here? Is this an issue? Well, we'll find out. Alright, it is built and connected to the breeder here, and yeah, you can see that I started building this out of iron blocks, and halfway I realized that I'm stupid because this needs to be torn down, and for the simple reason it's because it's horribly ugly. So the rails will have to go away after I fill the mob switch, of course. The mob switch is built. There are 2 layers here, as you might notice, because, of course, the zombified villagers count as zombies and they will burn in the sun, so they have to be protected at all times. I have not tested this yet, so, well, here goes nothing. Let's get some emeralds. Let's trade with this guy. What did I used to buy bricks. Yeah, put the bricks here. Because I only need to test this once, and yes, this is how we enabled the drowned. 1, 2, and boom! The whole thing moves automatically. I'm gonna turn off the drowned. I got another villager, which was perfect, and let's see if this works correctly here. He should be coming, yeah. And the first pod, I hope I placed the activator rail correctly. That didn't work at all. And I think it's the same issue that I had with the piglins in the trading hall, and it is that he started pathfinding? What was happening there? Okay, well, back to creative and see if this works when I'm in survival in creative. It just doesn't fall through the trapdoors at all. That's so weird. No, it just doesn't. That's interesting. Why is this different from creative? Alright, I have a villager, well, a zombie villager here. I have turned off the power to that rail. Let's get into survival. He should be hating me now. Hello, Mr. Hate me? Yeah, maybe. Maybe not. I don't know how this is supposed to work. Let's just turn it on. It works fine here. What did I do wrong? I did rotate it in my survival world, so maybe that is an issue? I'm gonna build this again in the rotation I have in the survival world and see if that is the problem. Oh, that would be very, very terrible if that was the problem. This is a rotated one, and let's see if this is a problem. It's not. I really don't understand what's going on then. I'll have to dig into this again. Oh, that's so weird and that's so unfortunate. I've had an idea though, because I think trying to prevent them from even attempting to pathfind might be very hard because, well, I failed when doing that with the piglins. But what if I just add a trapdoor here? So they cannot go anywhere because this trapdoor, wait, this trapdoor opens in this direction. So there is no way for the zombie to stand on the edge here if there is something in the way for its head. Maybe it's that simple? Well, only one way to find out. And I lost my activator rail, put it back here. Will this work? Please work. Well, that's very promising. That looks very, very promising. Alright, okay, I will try this. If this is the solution, then this is actually the perfect solution because we don't need to do anything more complicated than this. And if it's not the solution, we'll try to find another one. Alright, I installed the trapdoors here. They seem to be aligned in the right direction, and if they're not, well, I can fix that later, but I'm pretty sure they are in the right direction. Let's get a new villager and see if it works this time. And let's see, he's coming here. Come on, come on, come on, come on. And into the first pod. Perfect, and it works. And I also had to add some more powered rails here so that the minecarts could return, because apparently minecarts that are empty need more power than minecarts that aren't. Now, time to zombify many more villagers and fill that thing as fast as I can. I forgot to reset the counter when I was debugging the machine, so the first pod didn't fully fill up, and I have 240 bricks, so that means that I have done 24 villagers. But I have no idea, is it even possible to count how many there are in there? I don't think there is, but, well, now we know. This is working. The piston feed tape has actually worked and changed the activator rail. I'm not sure. 6 pods with 24 might actually be enough. I need to do the math. 6 times 4 is 24, plus 20 times 620, 144. So yeah, 6 pods should be enough. The 7th pod is just a bonus. So yeah, good. We're gonna be good. I don't have to reset this. The first pod will not be fully populated, but it's not a catastrophic problem. It's just a minor inconvenience. Perfect. I'll keep doing this, and we will have a mob switch. Well, probably not today, because I'm already think I'm running out of villagers. I'll have to AFK here overnight again, but sooner or later we will have a mob switch. Alright, I have run out of villagers, so right now the mob switch is turned off, and let's just verify that it's not contributing to my mob cap, and I guess I have to fly up very, very high. And yeah, nothing is contributing to the mob cap right now. I'm really high, actually. And far away from my base, so I'm definitely not loading that thing right now. Okay, let's go back. And now we turn this on. The zombie villagers have now moved into the spawn chunks. I really don't like their bouncing, but I guess it might work. Let's see. So I'm just gonna fly out in this direction. I'm definitely high enough that I'm not loading any other mobs anywhere. And what does the mob cap say? 25. And that's exactly how many villagers I had that I zombified. So, yeah, the mob switch is working. Of course, it's not fully working yet because it's not fully populated, but that's a very simple problem. But that will be all I have for you today. This actually took way longer time than I anticipated, especially because I have some bugs in the villager breeder. My villager breeder is now growing wheat and beetroots for some reason. I have no idea how they got in there. And I had a bug in here where I came back after an overnight AFK session and the villager breeder was full of witches, because apparently you have to have a roof much higher than, than the glass roof I have right now. Didn't know that. I probably need to solve that, but yeah, I haven't done that yet. As you might have noticed, I took a week break after the massive amount of work I put in the past few weeks, but now I'm back. I'm gonna be streaming from this world at 8 o'clock in the evening Central European Time, 7 o'clock in the evening UTC. It will be on twitch.tv/Borkon_live. It's today, the same day this episode comes out. I hope to see you there, and if not, I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.